People, thanks for coming back. I'm Dave. This is Save America, Vote Tulsi Gabbard. In this video, I want to talk about the Tulsi left-right convergence. Okay, now progressives who are out there doing what they do it much better, okay, than I can do that, because that's the lane they're in. I'm in a different place. So a lot of people ask me, hey, did you watch this guy? Did you get into his show? I love all these shows, and they're incredibly informative. But I think I have a bit of a different mission. As again, I'm from the right originally, and I still have some leaning right tendencies. And so, you know, I'm lying in bed the other night, I'm thinking to myself, of all these different issues where we agree, where we converge. And this isn't like a kumbaya thing. This is an important moment for politics if people on the right can see that they're being duped. Which, look, the scales fell off, and I looked and I saw something different for the first time. And I could hear arguments that, number one, I wasn't willing to even listen to before. Okay? I've got 2 books on the way that I think are really going to help me. I know you can't just read one book and become an expert on everything, but I've compiled a list here of the Tulsi left-right convergence. And again, some on the right won't buy into some of these, but if you supported Donald Trump for president, you should buy into all 10 of these points I'm about to make. Number 1 would be foreign policy. Trump ran on a non-interventionalist platform. I'll never forget seeing Jill Stein, and of course she wasn't a big fan of Hillary Clinton, saying on television that Donald Trump would probably be better than Hillary Clinton on these issues, because Hillary's walking around talking about what country we need to invade, and Trump is like, no, we need to have good relationships with people. That, of course, is out the window. If you've been following the news today, Iran is now the next target, and people were talking about that 2 weeks ago. Crazy. Nobody voted for that. Tulsi on foreign policy is the best candidate in this race. The militarization of the police. I haven't talked too much about this one, but libertarians, conservatives, most libertarians and some conservatives think this is bad. And the reason the police are getting more like the military is because we've got all of this military hardware, and they end up getting it after we use it overseas in a conflict, wherever we're drumming up a war. We bring a lot of that stuff home, and then of course then we replace the stuff that we've brought home with more stuff to keep the war machine alive. It's a dangerous thing to militarize the police. And I know Tulsi Gabbard is not for that. And it's just going down a road where trigger-happy becomes so much easier. So that's one I think we converge on. The surveillance state. Facebook and Twitter and all of these outfits that are taking our information and sharing it without our consent or knowledge. All right, and just in general, Big Brother is truly watching us, and it's getting worse and worse. And I didn't know what Trump thought on those issues, but I know Tulsi Gabbard, and I know a lot of my old conservative friends would say, okay, yeah, count me in. One of the big topics that we used to cover, Campaign for Liberty, was this loss of privacy, and it's getting worse. And it's going to get even worse as AI and all this technology ramps up. Monopolies of corporations and banks. Now, a lot of conservatives just blindly write an intellectual blank check to anything that has to do with business. Business, great. Yeah, we need more business. Big business, fine. They provide jobs. Bring them in. They also kill small businesses, and the banks have created such chaos, and this is where we get an oligarchy, is the banks and the corporations start to control things, and then the corporations get so powerful, they become part of the government. Most conservatives, I think, would have a problem with that. Some, of course, the neocons, they think it's just great. The more, the better. The free market. Okay, that's not the free market. There's no competition. How is that the free market? Legalization of pot versus the opioid crisis. A lot of these big pharmaceutical companies, they don't want marijuana legalized because that's going to put their drug of the week out of business. I mean, those ads you see on television that are, you're watching the news, the local news, and it's like this ad comes on, and then they go through like the 50 different possible side effects, and then if you want to buy this drug, it's going to cost you. It's really going to cost you, and then you're going to get addicted to it. My wife works in the medical field as a medical assistant. She sees this every day. People are begging for these prescriptions that they shouldn't have been prescribed in the first place. And medical marijuana would alleviate a lot of that in a lot of cases. It would certainly put a dent in it. And, of course, it drives the pharmaceutical companies crazy. All right? And, of course, next I have big pharma, like Purdue Pharma. They're in charge of all of these opioids that have gotten people addicted. Tulsi Gabbard has mentioned them by name. They're one of the worst. And they make getting addicted easy to this stuff. And it's got to stop. And I think most conservatives, left-right, the left-right paradigm, can move together on this. I don't see why not. Loss of wages, or lack of a decent wage. I'm sorry, if a place is being rented out where I live, and my wife went through some listings the other day, there are homes being rented out where I live for over $2,000 a week. Three-bedroom house, 2-bath maybe. Who's going to, can a family, a working-class family, go there and live? I mean, say the guy's working a job and the wife's working a job, and they pull their money together and they have enough, they cobble enough together for the rent. But then what about all the utilities and the food? And I mean, they may qualify for some food stamps. I don't know. But they might make too much. See, this is the old adage. But they don't make too much because their housing, they don't take into consideration how much they're paying for housing. These aren't people trying to beat the system. Or trying to, oh, I'm going to get these food stamps so I can save money and I don't have to buy food. That's crap. I was in that situation. We were not on them anymore, and I'm happy that we're not. But they worked while we were on them. And I think that's the ultimate way the safety net helps people. But because the wages aren't, they're not equal to what things cost, they don't reflect, an accurate cost of living allowance kind of a thing. I used to think the $15 an hour thing was ridiculous, but now I see some logic in it because it's the stop charging so much for everything. You know what I mean? You've got to get one thing in line. If you get the cost of housing to come down, then, maybe you don't need a $15 an hour wage. But right now, you do. You need something that's close to that. Even if you get a little closer, you compromised, all the Republicans and all of those people that think all the companies are just going to shut down. By the way, Andrew Yang, in an interview, says that he doesn't believe in the $15 an hour minimum wage. So, it's interesting. I've become less of a Yang fan. I still think he's really an intriguing guy and an interesting candidate. But, anyway, I've just seen the reality of the wages. And all these manufacturing jobs that have been outsourced, they're still, that's why Trump won, because he said, hey, we're going to bring those jobs back. Some of them have come back, but you have to retool the entire economy to gear it We're not in the Industrial Revolution anymore. We're not in that. We're in a more technology-driven era, and you can't build more coal plants. That's not a long-term strategy. Plus, it's not very good for the groundwater. Service over self. This is a Tulsi Gabbard thing. Service over self. When is the last time JFK? I think that's the last time I've heard that. I mean, this is not a politician that goes out there and is just me, me, me. This is not Hillary Clinton, or Donald Trump for that matter, where it's all about them and it's not about us. Service over self. Yes, all hands on deck. I hear and see a candidate like this, and yeah, I want to get into service. I want to help. And I think it would inspire people, younger women, looking up to Tulsi Gabbard. If you have a daughter, wouldn't you like to be like, if she would be like Tulsi? How cool would that be? Getting money out of politics. Lobbyists. If you're not for getting the money out of politics, then you're part of the problem. If you think that corporations, like the whole free speech argument in that, what is it, Citizens United, is that money is speech. But individual money might be speech, but not giant corporate blocks of it. Okay, that's not speech. I'm sorry. Now I know, because you got a guy like, was it Sheldon Adelson, whatever his name is? He's got money coming out of his butt. He's got money everywhere. And he essentially has more control and more power because it's his money. But again, it comes from where? You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily a good way to, represent democracy by having these giant loads of cash coming in if you decide that you're going to side with a foreign country. And that would be more like collusion than what we've seen with the Russians. Finally, foreign aid, and specifically talking about Israel, but we can talk about a lot of other countries that we give foreign aid to. This was a Donald Trump big issue, and it has completely just, he's tinkered and said, we'll not give you as much money, or we'll put sanctions on you. And these are all places that are now destabilized, and that's why you have all the migrants coming in, because you're destabilizing huge regions, and now people have nowhere to go, and they can't make ends meet there. So they're going to come to the country that did all the destabilizing. I guess that is what their philosophy is. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? The media is not going to tell you that. There should be a convergence on that issue, because everybody thought America first, not Israel first, not whoever first. I mean, I don't think foreign aid should go out to anybody unless there's a real humanitarian crisis that we need to address, or we need to be a good neighbor to those countries. And I think you should get congressional approval and support. And obviously, the War Powers Declaration, which Tulsi Gabbard, very strong on. This is something that hasn't been around for a while, and we got a bill passed, and I'm hoping that it gets signed into law. If Trump vetoes it, he's going to look like a real scoundrel, especially with all his supporters who thought, hey, if you're going to go to war, you should get congressional approval. That's what Trump said about Bush when he went to war against Saddam Hussein. He was using the same authorization that he was using from 9/11. So there you go. There's a lot of convergence here. It's a pretty good list here. And it's the great left-right Tulsi Gabbard convergence. Tell your friends. Get them over here. Tulsi's about to become a debate stage person. She's going to be on that debate stage with the rest of those neocons and Bernie Sanders. So it's Bernie and her. I hope they tag team the hell out of those people. It's going to be fun to watch. See you.